So, herzlich willkommen zum zweiten Livestream des Art ist Theaters Bamberg in unserem Themenmonat FeminEast, Frauen und Frauenbewegungen, Protestbewegungen aus Osteuropa. Heute zu Gast Wanda Grudzień aus Polen. In dieser Woche wollen wir über die Protestbewegungen von und mit Frauen, vor allem aber die Protestbewegung gegen die Verschärfung des Abtreibungsgesetzes in Polen sprechen. Wanda wird uns heute über die Ursprünge und die Entstehung der Bewegung erzählen, wird sagen, was die Forderungen der Proteste sind, wie ihre Außenwirkung ist, und Wanda wird uns auch über ihre eigenen Aktivitäten natürlich erzählen. Wanda ist 28 und lebt in Warschau, und neben ihrem Bürojob engagiert sie sich eben in verschiedenen Gruppierungen als Aktivistin. Im Chat könnt ihr wieder Kommentare schreiben und Fragen stellen. Das Interview werde ich jetzt auf Englisch weiterführen und möchte Wanda nochmal herzlich begrüßen dabei. So, Wanda, welcome to our live stream this week to Bamberg. I just introduced you and told the people a little bit about your work and told our viewers where you are from and what you do. But maybe first you could also briefly talk about what you're doing and how you became an activist. What are your main goals, and when and where you participate as an activist?
Hello, it's nice to be here. So, as Chrissy mentioned, my name is Wanda Grudzień. I live in Warsaw. I'm 28 years old. My main focus in my everyday activism is actually not women's rights, because my main focus is my association, which gathers the inhabitants of my district in Warsaw. We do different watchdogging activities, and also like ecological initiatives for the local community here. So like community gardens and so on. And then the other part of my daily activities as an activist is a foundation called Lusie Poland, where we hold creative writing workshops, and then we create posters that speak about freedom of expression, for instance, about tolerance and so on, and then we put them in the public space. That would be like my two main focuses in my everyday life after work. And then I'm also an active protestant in LGBTQ issues in Poland, because this is like a very, very hot topic in Poland since, 2 or 3 years. And then also in women's rights protests that are also very important issue recently.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so it's really great. You mentioned the Lusie program. That's also an association which is popular in Germany, and it's based from the Netherlands.
Yeah. That's right.
The Netherlands. So we have all programs and organizations also linked in the comment section afterwards. So for the other viewers who are interested, you can look what they are doing. So thank you very much. So you said, okay, you are working in different kinds of protests and different kinds of organizations. But could you briefly outline the main events which started the big protests in the last year, or pretty much probably 5 years ago, the summary of the main events in Poland?
Yeah, I think we should actually start in 2016, where we had that initiative to ban abortion. There was a draft bill introduced by a group of right-wing activists, actually, and anti-abortion activists. And then this was supposed to be voted in the parliament. And then we had the first big protest. It was called Black Monday, where every woman, every protesting woman was dressed all in black. And we didn't go to work, we didn't go to school. We just went to the streets to protest. That was the first big event. And as you mentioned, that was 6 years ago. And then the parliament rejected the bill, but instead they started some talks in the background with the Constitutional Tribunal. And it took them a long time, but finally they made decision in October last year to ban all abortions due to severe and lethal fetal malformations. Because right now, before in Poland, you were able to have an abortion if you. I'm sorry, this is my dog. There were only three moments where you could have an abortion, and the Constitutional Tribunal decided to also ban one of them, and that was when the fetus was ill or malformed, or the child would be born dead, or that the pregnancy would be a risk to women's life. So that was banned. And this was the spark that led to the protest from the October, November, December that go on until today.
Okay, so that's like the main events, the starting point of that. I remember that I've also been in Poland this time, and like the whole protesting in black, so that it was really like a momentum of the protest, I would say, like a symbolism of that.
Yeah.
But how would you say right now? Because I've heard, or I've read in the media that the formation, it's pretty much everywhere in Poland. Like everywhere, people were just striking and not going to work. How would you say is the protest organized? Is there like a leader, a figure, or are there any NGOs working on that? And how do you communicate to do that?
There is an organization called Ogólnopolski Strajk Kobiet, All Poland Women Strike, that is a coordinator of those strikes. But there are also many other collectives and organizations that work with them to organize those events. And then it's also very important to mention that there is also a lot of local groups, not only in big cities in Poland, but also in smaller cities, where the protests are organized or were organized, because right now there is a lot of police violence at those demonstrations. And, in smaller cities, when, the policeman is your neighbor and so on, people are more afraid to go to the streets right now.
Yeah, that's really reasonable, of course. So, would you say, because you mentioned like the women went on protest, but then you corrected and say protesting people, would you say that just women are protesting, or who is participating? Do the people have the same goals, or and are they just women, or who's doing that?
I think it's mostly women, but of course there are some men supporting the abortion rights and so on. And it's also important to mention that in the peak of the protests were not that much about abortion anymore, but the focus was more on the government, that people dislike the government and the policies they create and their work in total. And then actually, for me, for a person who started protesting in those protests because of the abortion rights, it was actually quite a difficult period, because I had this feeling that the abortion that was totally left out from the protest, and we were focusing mostly on the government. Of course, the government had a fault there, and it's true, but there were also other politicians tried to steal the protest and steer it away from the abortion, just to say that the governing party is bad and so on. And the women felt left out.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. This was also what I was feeling when I was reading like last year, and then in maybe November, December, and then this year that it like it changed a little bit. The goals changed a little bit.
Yeah,
And you said, okay,
but
it was heavy for you, and I would also say that it's hard to decide to join the protest then if you're not sure what is actually the goal right now, right?
yeah,
Mm.
yeah, I would say that right now, when we have those, the weather is worse, we have police violence and so on, the focus went back to abortion.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, there are also other issues because that organization I mentioned earlier, All Poland Women Strike, they also created like a few committees that talk about other issues, for instance, environment, education, health system, that are also like very neglected, let's say, topic in Poland right now, or very influenced by the right-wing politics of the current government.
Mm-hmm.
But when we go to streets right now, it's mostly because of like back again because of abortion.
Okay, so you're like steering a little bit around it and came back. Uh-huh.
Yeah,
That's really interesting. Hmm. Would you like to
yeah.
comment something again?
No.
Okay, so who would you think is not participating? Are there like any anti-movements against that, or is it like because usually in Germany we have like a protest and then an anti-protest, and
Hmm.
they are demonstrating against each other somehow. Last week we've listened to Hanna Koma from Belarus, and there it's said that it's more like the protesting people against the police. So how would you describe
Hmm.
Poland, the system now?
Yeah, I think it's also more this way that you have protesting people and the police.
Mm-hmm.
But then, like in the peak of the protests in November, we had also like some attacks from like right-wing activists.
Mm-hmm.
There were there was that event that was called the Battle of Empik. Empik is like a chain of stores with books in Poland, where they were like creating like some chaos in the middle of the protesting group next to that shop in the city center of Warsaw. And there were some like not fireworks, but this similar thing, like football fans use and so on.
Mm-hmm.
That was it. And then we had that. But right now, you don't get like counter demonstrations. It's just mostly the protesting people against the police, because the police, like go around them, wouldn't let them to go out from that circle, and they have to stand there for many hours and so on.
Mm-hmm.
And they have to like to show their ID to go out, so that then, because right now we also have the pandemic,
Yes.
and the police claims it's not legal to have a demonstration, which is not true, because then when you go to the court with that ticket they give you, in most cases the court would like say it wasn't right to give you that ticket,
Really?
and that you were innocent. Because there are some like legal issues. I'm not very good with the law, but the way in which those COVID-19 regulations were introduced in Poland is not the proper way to do it in a legal way, because like the law is not called the thing it should be called and done in a proper way. Well, anyway, in fact, it just proves that, the government just doesn't really know what they are doing right now.
Yeah. But it's really interesting that you mentioned that actually like the jurisdiction is not in like also against you. So
Yeah.
you even have the chance that you get like a ticket or a ban or whatever, and but nothing will happen to you probably, right?
Yeah, like in the end you will be okay, but it's also a lot of stress for many people, so this is discouraging. And then it's also a lot of time. And because of the judiciary system in Poland is also right now controlled by the government. That's why the Constitutional Tribunal actually even talked about this this issue of abortion. You can never be sure how in the end it will turn out.
Right. Yeah.
So it's just very stressing. Like in the situation where you are surrounded by the police and you cannot go out, and when we had those examples where the police used tear gas and so on. So, when you are surrounded by the police, you just don't know what will happen. If they will start beating you up, like they did sometimes last year, or if they will just, stand around you and then let you go if you show them the ID. It's just, then, you will also don't know when the letter from the police will come, that you will have to go to the court and so on. It's just very stressing.
Yeah, that's true. Okay. So now we know how this whole protests are formatted and how they develop. Could you describe in your own words and in your own opinion how the appearance of the protest feels like, or how does it look like? Which symbols appear very often, and or which pictures or slogans or anything like that? Could you just explain that a little bit?
I think it's important to mention that there at the beginning there was a lot of anger in people, and you could see that in the use of swear words. And then our opponents used those swear words as an argument to show that we are not serious people because we use swear words. So there was a lot of transparents saying wypierdalać or jebać PiS. And then this is fuck the ruling party, governing party in Poland right now, or just fuck off, from here. Because it also felt a lot like, the protest of young people and people with less privileges against, the establishment. The people who are in the politics for 20, 30 years, they switch parties and they are always there. You can never get rid of them, because even if you do not vote them to go to the parliament, in the end they end out and in some important, institution and so on. And then there was also a lot of transparency that were inspired by memes from the internet. This was also actually very funny, and there are even albums or exhibitions with the transparency, because people were really serious about them. And actually it was some kind of a catwalk. Who will have a better transparent with a better slogan on it? It was really funny. And then it's also important that there is a lot of graffiti, and this graffiti is connected with the lighting, the symbol of the strike. But there is also a lot of graffiti which says which is the telephone number, and this telephone number is the number to the organization Aborcyjny Dream Team, and this is the organization that help to get abortion with the pharmaceuticals, with medicaments, with pills. This is still legal. If you do abortion on your own, it's still legal, and there is no punishment for it. Or if you are if your pregnancy is more advanced, then they also help you to organize to go abroad to have an abortion.
Okay. It's really interesting. I have actually also found the Jebać PiS sign in Bamberg, in our city. So even there we have those street arts.
Because with the internet working as it works, it's really funny because people do right, earbud piece in very different places. Like when they go skiing, let's say in winter, they do it with their skis in the snow, let's say in the Alps, and then they post it in the internet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, really
Yeah.
interesting. Thank you. Um, what would you think was like the initial commitment from all the people so big? Like, how did the protests convince the people? Because okay, at the beginning you said it was all about the abortion ban on the
Mhm.
law, and then it changed, of course. But what would you think was convincing for people to join and to participate in the protests?
Yeah, I think at the beginning, the most convincing thing, like for the women to join, was the fact that it was mostly men deciding what they are supposed to do with their bodies.
Mm-hmm.
So in Poland, it is typical that if you have like, let's say, like a discussion in TV about abortion, then you will have a male politician and a priest to talk about it, and no woman.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so this is making a lot of us very angry, and that's why at the beginning, like a lot of people joined joined the protest and went to the streets.
Okay. Yeah, that's
And then I think it's also very important that this abortion ban in case of like fetus malformations, yes, it's actually affecting all levels of society. Like it doesn't really matter if you're poor or rich. Uh, you just, if you are rich, you can, of course, it's easier for you to go abroad and so on. But still, it's a lot of, you are already in a very stressful situation, yeah, because you worry about like yourself, you worry about the fetus and so on, and then it's not like normally you would just go to the doctor and that would be it. But then instead of that, you have to like stress a lot to organize everything, to worry if the pills will reach you on time, to worry how to go abroad, especially right now in the COVID-19 situation. It can be very complicated to go abroad because of the quarantines and so on.
yeah.
So yeah, I think like a lot of people just felt that it could affect their lives
Mm-hmm.
directly.
Do also elderly people protest with you?
Um, yeah, like I wouldn't say there is a lot of like older men, but there is a lot of older women who still remember the times when abortion was like legal in Poland. Like you could just do abortion when you wanted.
Okay, so that's
Because
solidarity chain for that. Okay.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, really interesting. Because I was always as like I thought about this topic and thought which questions I would ask you and stuff like that. I was always thinking about the form, the appearance and the form of the protest compared to other forms. Like for example, in Germany, as I said, usually you have like a formal demonstration. You have to have like an organizer going to like public institutions to say, okay, on this and this and this date, I would like to have like a demonstration, and you get, you get to say, yes, you can do that, or no, you can't. And then people are demonstrating. Of course, there's also police, but it's really formal. And usually, like the anti-movement, if concerning, for example, topics of like refugees, women rights, and LGBTQ activism, stuff like that, are more or less like right associated activists. And so you always have this one part and the anti-part, and they are just kind of trying to fight against each other. And I think from some people that is not really convincing to join those forms of protest. And so I thought it was really interesting how it was in Poland or also in Belarus and in other countries, because like there's one unit of people protesting, and as we've already said, against maybe the police or the government or like politics or stuff like that. Um, and also the outer view is differently from in my experiences at least. So usually it's really yeah, there's really much anger and violence going on, and that is also like probably a reason why most of the people are not joining there. Do you see, or which are like the main differences you would say from the Polish protest compared to, for example, the Belarusian protests, or like the also the Black Lives Matter movement, for example? Where would you see differences, and where would you see like similarities in these forms?
Mm, yeah, like many people say that what is similar in the protest in Poland and in Belarus is the use of the app Telegram, because, as I mentioned, due to COVID restrictions, you are not allowed to register the protest beforehand. Normally, you would do that in the council, so that they will know in advance that you are planning to block the street or whatever. But due to COVID restrictions, it is not allowed. Like the council wouldn't be able to give a permission to have that protest organized. So at the what the organizers at the beginning did, they would say that we are inviting you for a walk. So we would have like those marches that would go around, so that it would be like a walk. So the police wouldn't be able to call it the demonstrations, because people weren't standing in one place; they were just walking around the city. And I think it developed in a very nice way, because in the biggest demonstrations in this form of the walk, we had like a lot of private tracks with music, and in the end, it was more like like equality parade, something like that, where you would do some dancing and singing and so on, and less like this formal protest. But yeah, what you say about the protests in Germany, that you have the opponents and the proponents of a given issue, I think in a sense it is a good way, because it means that people are not like lazy, or are not afraid to fight for their beliefs. In Poland, I would say that the problem is that people are usually not very active, and that you need such a big thing like full abortion ban nearly to make people go to the streets.
Okay. I actually had the same feeling in Germany, so it's funny that usually like we have like a big space in between those parties, so the police is trying to follow like the one route around here and the others around here, and that maybe you can see the others, but usually there's a lot of police in between like the openings. But anyway, that's an interesting point that you experience it like that. Okay.
But I think in the end, I hope it would be easier for you with those two groups to create some sort of a dialogue. And here I have a feeling that you have that you have two groups that is just talking and not trying to, like in the abortion case, you cannot really speak about a compromise. But yeah, I just have this feeling that it doesn't really help the public discussion. That people are not talking to each other. Just you always have those separate groups, and people are just reserved and afraid to go out and see those other people protesting.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, usually it comes to those protests because people couldn't talk it out beforehand. So I would say that is a result of that it's not possible to talk to find a compromise, because otherwise there wouldn't be people protesting. That's true. What would you say is the main achievement? Are there any achievements already in the Polish movements? What would you say for the last 2-3 years?
Yeah, I wouldn't even say that there are any achievements in the last 2 or 3 years. That the achievement happened like since the protest started, because like many people are now aware that it's legal to have an abortion with a pill at home if you do it on your own, without help from anybody else. Because according to the Polish law, only the person who helped in the abortion can be punished. But if you do it yourself, you cannot be taken to the court. So a lot of people are now aware of that. And then I mentioned that group Aborcyjny Dream Team, and there is a lot of like a lot of women who like from smaller towns who didn't have access to the internet, who didn't know that they exist, and so on. Now they know that there is somebody out there who can help them. This telephone number is really popular now, and like the oh, sorry, this is my dog again. And the awareness like was raised. And then I also think it's very important that all the talk about abortion resulted in the shift of the discourse. So before, I'm sorry. Before there was a lot of people who were happy with that so-called compromise, that you had only those 3 possibilities where you could have abortion. But right now, the number of people who want to have full abortion right is rising. So I think like this shift in the discourse is very important.
Yeah, that's true. And I mean, I think we have to underline the fact that it's not about most of the people who will have an abortion have like the reasons of severely disabled children, or like you said, born dead children. So it's not, it's already strict, or it has been very strict, and it got even more severe. And people just do want the right to have like the own choice about their body and like the children, because it's not about, okay, I don't want to have a baby right now, I do that. So how to say that, it's like the minimum we want to achieve there, I guess. And where do you think are like the biggest challenges what you are facing right now?
I think the biggest problem right now is the behavior of the police violence. Because it prevents some people from protesting. And for the people who still go to the protests, it's a lot of additional pressure, psychic pressure, a lot of stress, and people get really like tired because of the tension. And I think also like for me personally, it's also like very difficult to go out like to the streets right now. Because you feel that fear, and you don't know what will happen, and it's really difficult right now.
Okay, yeah. Do you have any suggestions for people who want to help and don't know really how? Like from abroad, for example, is there any way to support like the people in Poland, some NGOs, and or like personal donation programs or stuff like that?
There are like chains of people abroad that already help in abortions, like the collectives of activists who help out, for instance, in sending the pills to Poland, to organizing abortion abroad. So like this already happens. But what is also important, I think, is like sharing the news from Poland on social media and so on to make more people aware of the situation.
Yeah, that's a really, really important point. That's why we are also talking about that today. It's good to know what is happening and why. Yeah, if you have any links or any home pages you can go to and get more information, I would be happy that you send it to me, and I will put it in the comment section. So if anybody is more interested in this topic, you can just go online and check that out. So, okay. Thank you really much for all those information. I know it's a really complex topic because it's the same like last week, like all the political and institutional systems and what was happening beforehand. It's really complex and it's really difficult to explain in such a short time. But yeah, for me it was really interesting and informative. So thank you really much, and thank you also for your effort and engagement in those protests, because that's like it's also a topic which just is important for everybody in the world, because that is nothing which is just important for Poland, I would say, and especially for women um, in the world. So yeah, thank you really much again, and I was really happy to have you here. I was just checking if
Thank you.
any questions in the comment section. Okay, doesn't seem like that. So yeah, we will just say goodbye to the viewers. And
goodbye. Thank you.
Nice evening, everybody.